election history in the making in France. Massive turnout by voters as President Emmanuel Macron stakes his political future on seeing off a populist challenge from the far right. But his national rally rival Marine Le Pen could well emerge victorious, leaving Macron significantly weaker. I'm Ben Fazulin. Welcome to our special coverage of the election night in France. The time has just gone 8 p.m. in Paris and all polls are now closed. We're expecting projected results from the French broadcasters any minute now. We'll bring you them as soon as they come in. French President Emmanuel Macron called these elections in response to the far right's crushing victory in the European parliamentary elections earlier this month. It's been a high-stakes gamble, with opinion polls suggesting Macron's far-right opponents could now win an absolute majority in the National Assembly. Turnout in this first round has been a record high of 69%. That's the highest in over 4 decades. DW correspondent Lisa Louis joins us from Paris. In France, polling stations are closing. Just tell us what those first numbers are looking like.
Well, for now, we only have exit polls and then, results for a dozen overseas departments territories where the far-right National Rally didn't come first. When it comes to the exit polls, national exit polls, it looks like the far-right National Party really came first. Second would be the left-wing alliance of Nouveau Front Populaire. Then on a third position, Emmanuel Macron's party and its allies, and then centre-right party, the Republicans. Now, what this means in terms of seats in the National Assembly is quite difficult to say. This is the first of 2 rounds of voting, and it's a direct vote in 577 voting districts. In many districts and many polling stations, the voting begins like at the one behind me here in northern Paris. People will now try and start to vote, to count the votes, and then feed the results back to the Interior Ministry. So we should know more about the results bit by bit soon over the course of the evening.
Is that 69% voter turnout a surprise to you, Lisa?
Well, it's not really a surprise. This seems really a historic election. As one headline put it, France is holding its breath. Everybody I talked to today and also over the past few days told me this is really important for us. We need to turn out to vote. Those obviously who were afraid of the far right felt this would be, could be the first time that the far right really comes to power through legislative elections, not through presidential elections. But mind you, if they did get an absolute majority in Parliament, they would be putting forward the Prime Minister. There would be a far right government with, Emmanuel Macron as a president, and that could really re-steer national politics. Many people here are afraid of that. They know that there is a danger that the far right really might come to power. And so, yes, many people here at the polling station today, but also, as I said, over the past few days, have told me it's really important to turn out to vote in this election.
Macron's never been so unpopular. So what's at stake for him here?
Well, absolutely, and I think it was some kind of genius idea, according to him at least, to call this snap election. This came right after the EU elections 3 weeks ago, where the far right came first with about 31 percentage points, 8 percentage points higher than in the previous EU election. And Emmanuel Macron felt that he was really losing momentum. That's also what a friend of mine told me. He's working in one of the ministries of the current government. He says, there's just no impetus anymore, and the government felt that they had to relaunch, this presidency. And that's what Macron thought he could do through a snap election. But then many actually here in France felt this was really not the right moment, because to do this right after the EU elections, where the far right has an excellent result, is just giving them a platform paving the way for the far right to maybe gain power now in Parliament. Plus, this is the shortest election campaign in French history, only 3 weeks. They didn't even have time to print posters, to print out the leaflets. People said, it took us unawares. We weren't prepared for this campaign. We couldn't even fight and try to convince voters to vote for us instead of the National Rally.
Lisa Louis there with the latest on those snap parliamentary elections in Paris for us. And let's get some analysis on that. Thibaut Madelin is a French journalist based here in Berlin. What do you make of the numbers coming through?
Well, the first numbers we hear is that it's fairly coherent to the results of the European elections, really. Mm-hmm. So Macron's bet that the Rassemblement National vote will decline with this national election didn't really work. So we hear 34% roughly compared to 31%, which is even a progress. And it's also just twice as much as last national election in 2022. So it's a success for the Rassemblement National, and then we'll see how it turns out in numbers of seats, really. That's the question for the second round.
Yeah, what sort of government could come out of this, do you think?
Well, we'll see. You hear projections, and then it's hard to tell between 200 and 300 or even more seats for the Rassemblement National, which is close to the majority by 289. The main question now is to see whether Macron's people candidate or the left-wing candidates will withdraw, and what will be the line chosen by the parties. I think Macron's party and allies will decide on that question tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And same goes probably for the left-wing party, although some of the parties within the left-wing alliance already said they will support Macron if they come third in these constituencies.
What's the message to Macron here, do you think? You just mentioned the European elections. Is it we don't like you and now we really don't like you at all?
Yeah, it's. Surely there's part of the message is anger at Macron, and for some people at least, what he's done in the last few years, but also for some people more recently, people who supported Macron seem to now support other parties. And what really was Macron's key to success when he came to power in 2017 was, forget all old parties, try something new with me, and now is being kicked out by the Rassemblement National, who is trying to say, well, try me.
But do people not like what he did or how he did it?
Yeah, you're right. It's both, really. I mean, it's hard to say that France has been really declining. The economy has been quite resisting in front of, shocks. I think really is the way he uses power and how he presents himself has angered quite a few people.
Okay, Thibaut, we'll continue this talk in a moment. Let's just have a look at the first projections coming in from the French broadcaster TF1, and it looks like a sizable win for the far-right National Rally with 34.2% in dark blue. The left-wing New Popular Front Alliance takes 29.1%, shown in red. In yellow, Emmanuel Macron's Together coalition gets 21.5%, and in light blue, the centre-right Republicans take 10%. These are the projected results as of 8 p.m. Paris time. So, Thibaut, what do you think from those numbers and colours there?
Well, Rassemblement National, we've just talked about it at 34%. What may surprise is Macron's camp ensemble with I think 23%, which is almost 10% more than at the European elections. So in that respect, you could argue it's a success for Macron, but you could also, you see also that it's the Macron's party is coming third, which is a mess, really.
OK, we'll have to go over to Marine Le Pen. She's now addressing the crowd.
Chaleureusement les électeurs et accueillons ce résultat d'alternance comme une marque de confiance qui nous honore et nous
We are
oblige.
honored by this
J'ai en
proof
particulier une
of
pensée pour les
trust,
électeurs
and
de
it
la
also
11e
obligates us.
circonscription du
And I'm
Pas-de-Calais
thinking
qui
of
me
the
font
voters
l'honneur
of
de
the
m'élire
11th
ce soir.
circumscription in Pas-de-Calais who voted me directly.
Pour autant, rien n'est gagné.
But nothing has been won yet, and the second round is going to be important to avoid for the country to fall into the hands of the NUPES too, and the anti-Republican, anti-Semitic manifestations of violent groups under Jean-Luc Melenchon if he were prime minister. Of course, it will also give Jordan Bardella the absolute majority in the National Assembly and launch from the coming week the new unity and national concordance again. Under a democracy, nothing is more normal and healthy than alternating parties in power. The country needs reforms, and we need absolute majority for that. And Jordan Bardella needs to be named prime minister by President Macron. Without a clear majority, there's always going to be inertia and other maneuvers to avoid a real alternating power that the country needs. My fellow citizens, please renew your vote if you voted for us in the first round. And if you voted for somebody else, please, next Sunday, vote for the Coalition for Freedom, Security and Unity. On Sunday, if you vote for the candidates of the National Union, the country is going to have peace and fraternity again and the energy to be one country. In the coming days, please beware of those that are afraid, unjustly afraid, and that would just like to have a system that has done his time. No French citizen is going to lose any rights, I can promise you that. On the contrary, their rights will be guaranteed, and if the situation allows it, new rights will be created for everybody. My fellow citizens, on this June 30th, hope lives again, so mobilize to win. Long live the Republic and long live France.
Cheers for Marine Le Pen there. And an interesting speech talking about unifying the country. Can the far right be a unifying force in France, Thibaut?
Well, it's hard to believe. I mean, you can clearly see there are 2 or 3 blocks, and the politics of the far right will be polarizing. It's been the message they've had for many years. Obviously, they've tried to polish that message and make it more acceptable to vote for the Rassemblement National. But as you've seen, her last message, Marine Le Pen, was to say no citizen will lose its right, which is quite the contrary to what they've said. They've said, like, that, for instance, that binational people would lose the right to exert some jobs in sensitive areas. So we can expect fairly, perhaps violence, but we will see anyway a very strong divide within the society.
There have been warnings of something like that. How would a second round go down, do you think? Because this, just explain to our viewers how this has to go through these 2 steps.
Well, concretely, you have to have 12.5% within the constituency to go into the next round, which is, we'll have many constituencies, according to these results, with 3 candidates, perhaps 200 or more. Last time, in 2022, there were only 8 constituencies with 3 candidates in the second round. That tells you how strong the mobilization is, and it will also tells us also how difficult it will be to project the results. And we'll see then if parties, like we've just said before, withdraw their candidate, how it turns out. But surely the Rassemblement National is not far from having an absolute majority. And it was her message to the people, give us a real chance to govern. That's what she wants with Jordan Bardella. It wouldn't be Marine Le Pen as a Prime Minister. Jordan Bardella is young.
Thibaut, thank you very much. We'll get back to you later in the night as those results continue to come through. Let's first of all take you over to Brussels. And Jack Parrock is standing by for us with the consequences of these results. Let us know what a far-right French parliament would mean for Europe, first of all.
Well, I think it would be, firstly, a really big shock for the European Union. There are obviously far-right leaders across some of the EU's 27 member states. But France is such a powerful economy in the EU that having a parliament led by a far-right prime minister would be, firstly, and predominantly, I think, very debilitating for the French president. It would mean that his presidency, the last 2.5 years or so, he would be so severely weakened domestically that it would make it very difficult for him to act with any serious power and weight on the EU platform, basically. When he comes to Brussels, he would really struggle to assert any power. I think, though, from a European perspective, people are looking more into is that if the Rassemblement National, the National Rally, do succeed in that second round next weekend, then there is an expectation from a lot of EU officials that I've spoken to that potentially Marine Le Pen would then try and push for a quick snap presidential election. And that would be the real clincher. Not so much the parliament, that would have a big effect. But if there was a far-right president in France, and that would probably, we expect, be Marine Le Pen, if she had managed to force a presidential election off the back of a parliamentary election result, that would be of real concern for the European Union.
Jack, thank you very much for the update. Sorry to butt in, but the French far-left leader Jean-Luc Melenchon is now addressing his supporters. Let's listen in.
We have to underline that the considerable progress of voter turnout has happened thanks to massive actions and commitment of our youth and the poorer quarters. I want to solemnly thank the dozens of thousands of men and women that mobilized together with us in order to make that possible. And now we are going towards a second round that is going to be exceptionally intense. The country has to decide. Is it going to divide itself even more, to increase social inequalities, religious, skin color, social geographical origins? Or is it going to pull together and be one people that is going to help each other and work for the common welfare without conditions? That is the choice you have for the second round. Or else the new Popular Front, or else the National Rally. And under those conditions, we can have no other proposal, we can have no other reasonable request that we can formulate to you. You have to give the absolute majority to the new Popular Front. It's the only alternative. But it's not only the fact to vote against or to block a party. It means to vote for another future that respects every human being and every living being. And that is possible. For the second round, the new Popular Front is going to be there as a dualist in most cases. Most of the times opposed to the National Rally. And then you can vote directly for us and give us absolute majority. In some cases, 3 candidates remain. And according to our principles and to our constant position in all the previous elections, nowhere we are going to allow the National Rally to win. And that is why, in case that they are first and that we should be third, we are going to retract our candidate. Our candidate will step down. And under all circumstances, wherever it be, and in any case, we are giving a direct and a clear instruction: no seat for the National Rally. We call for a clear and simple intentions. All our energies must allow the New Popular Front to realize the new France. We have a long week in front of us. Everybody is going to make up his or her mind and take a decision. And that is going to determine the future of our country and our destiny. We are calling all of you, keep a cold head and be convinced. Everybody, every man, every woman needs to take a position and be committed and convince those around you. The future of France is at stake. The Republic is at stake. The idea that we have of our life together is at stake. The polls, like always, are going to change in our favor during the evening, like always. And the seats that are projected don't really have a value except to exert pressure. But in reality, the future is never written anywhere. And always, like in our private life, our collective life depends on the decision and on the commitment of each of us. With the New Popular Front, a new France is possible. A France of unity, respect for everybody, and for all living beings all the time, right now. To all of you, in the name of my friends, and with a thought for all of those that committed in this fight for the first round, I am saying that the future is still open, and I am fervently saying in the name of all of us, long live France, long live our sovereign people, long live the Republic.
That's the French far-left leader Jean-Luc Melenchon addressing his supporters, saying it's going to be a busy week in French politics, a lot at stake in the second round. Just bringing us back to this first round, where are we at?
Well, what it's trying to tell voters is we can still win in the second round. We are 29%, the Rassemblement National is 34%. If some of Macron's supporters support us in the second round, we might have a chance. It's a hard bet, and he's putting pressure. He's saying we will withdraw our candidates when we come third in the constituencies. This way is putting pressure on Macron's party to also withdraw its candidates when they come third. It might work, but the figures are quite clear in favor of the Rassemblement National. Things can really change within a week. So even though we can project seats, we won't know until next Sunday. So the real shock might come actually next Sunday.
Journalist Thibaut Madelin, I hope you'll be here to take us through those shocks in the French political landscape. And let's take you over now to Jack Parrock again. He joins us from Brussels. Tell us more about how a pro-EU French president and a Eurosceptic prime minister could work together.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. And frankly, they probably can't. I mean, that's the understanding. There have been cases in the past in France where there have been political differences between the Prime Minister and the President, but never so sharp as if it was a Jordan Bardella Prime Ministership and an Emmanuel Macron presidency. And this is it. I mean, just from a European perspective, Jordan Bardella is kind of well known. He's been an MEP, as has Marine Le Pen. They're known in these European circles. They know how to work in the European circles and how to stir up sort of sentiment and feeling within European politics. Emmanuel Macron is without doubt one of the most pro-EU leaders, let alone French leaders, that we've ever seen, and has been really trying to push for European integration, diametrically opposed to the sort of proposals of the National Rally. So it will be really difficult. It will snarl up not just French politics, which will make it very difficult, I think, for any laws to be passed. The President's office and the Parliament will really just be completely at odds. And that will have a knock-on effect in the European Union lawmaking as well, where there will be so much conflicted messaging coming out of France that actually a lot more onus will probably land on the Germans to lead. But we know that Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, has a very difficult sort of coalition going forward and struggles sometimes himself. So there will be probably a lack of leadership in the European Union from the two biggest economies if this does take place, if the Rassemblement do well and manage to win the Parliament next weekend.
DW's Jack Parrock, thanks for joining us from Brussels.